Thomas and Tracy enjoy helping out at the Bluesburg Steelworks. They love visiting their friends Phoebe and Ralph and giving them much-needed help. Ralph has constantly kept busy running the manager about and shifting ladle cars into place, while Phoebe takes on long journeys to Bluesburg West Junction and beyond. But the yard had many orders to fill for the next few weeks, and even the extra 2 engines weren't enough to keep things running. That was when Diesel, Airy, and Bert came in. Diesel was in charge of the docks at Gardenia Bay, while Airy and Bert had been brought in from the Sodor Ironworks for a period. Together, the engines had a known reputation for pranks and mischief making around other engines. They arrived one busy morning. Thomas and Tracy were arranging a freight train for Tim to bring out when they oiled into the main yard. "Hello, Cole," said Airy. "So the big old steelworks can handle with a teapot on rails? Figured they'd send for some modern diesels to help with the extra workload." "You'd be modern 70 years ago," quipped Ralph. "Now, as manager's diesel of the Bluesburg Steelworks, we're gonna need you to—" "And a rusty matchbox on wheels for a boss. Boy, you really need proper diesels around here," Bert greasily chirped. "Why, you—" "Alright," said Phoebe coolly. "Now that we've gotten to know each other, let's get to work. Diesel, dockyard deliveries. Airy and Bert, your work in the pier." And she confidently went back to the steelwork shed to work. The Diesels did prove to help out a little bit, but many problems soon arose with their presence. They shoved trains into the wrong sidings, took any chance they got to make fun of or play tricks on. And Diesel would bump Thomas or take the right away from him. Altogether, the 3 engines were gradually getting fed up with the Diesel's trickery. Phoebe, on the other hand, wasn't particularly bothered. No matter what prank she got, she took it all in stride. "Thank you for arranging my freight cars, Airy," she said to him after getting bumped with freight cars. "I really needed the washdown, Bert," she said when shunted while taking on water. "Your brakes need checking," she said when bumped by Diesel. All in all, the freight engine was proving to be very tough to break. And Diesel and his cronies were more determined than ever to push her to the edge. Next morning, Thomas and Phoebe were sent to Selgrib City with a heavy freight train. "Make sure to mind yourselves while we're gone," puffed Phoebe. "And mind yourselves if you have to go through Bluesburg West." "Huh," said Diesel. "We can handle that yard easily." And determined to prove they were capable, he requested that he, Airy, and Bert be coupled to the next train heading out through there. "There's a 12 o'clock express to go to Folston, but you'd better watch out there. It'll be rush hour." But the Diesels weren't thinking or listening. They were too busy thinking how clever they were to realize what they were getting themselves into. Nor had they been paying attention to the freight cars in the yard. "Who are they to boss us around, punting us like footballs around the yards? This is Phoebe's yard, and Ralph's too. Let's teach them a lesson, boys." The Diesels were soon on their way with their heavy freight train. Although advised by the conductor to take at the very least a transfer caboose, they chose to take it as a triple header. "The Diesels on the other railways have no trouble hauling it all at the front with no van, so why should we worry?" But they had forgotten that Diesels on the other railway have special devices to minimize the usage of brake vans and cabooses. Bluesburg West is a very dangerous yard for a careless engine. There's few signals located throughout it, and engines must take care and pay close attention when entering or exiting the yards. Engines must always be prepared to give off 4 short whistles to alert the signalman in the control tower that they are there. But Diesel and the twins hadn't bothered to remember. They just hurried through the tunnel to the junction. The car's chance had come. "On! On! On!" they yelled, and with a mighty shove, the cars took the Diesels by surprise and surged the speeding engines into the junction. The signalmen were shocked and put in a full-on panic, frantically trying to avoid a collision. 2 mainland Diesels nearly hit them at the entrance, they almost hit Callie at an intersection, and Douglas nearly lost his tender. "Whew," said Diesel, "we're home free now." But they weren't. They hadn't accounted for Alea, a little shunting engine who was pushing a line of freight cars to go to Groffman Harbor. She was entering the main line. "Oh no!" screamed Diesel as he shut his brakes hard on. Then, disaster struck. Next to the crash, dazed, confused, and bruised. Some of Alea's cars had been thrown right off the track, and with Airy and Bert derailed on the switch, no one from the main line could get into the junction. "Hey!" shouted Alea. "I'll fetch a crane and send for a few others!" By the time the mess was cleared, Phoebe and Thomas were returning from their big run. Phoebe was a little bit entertained from the debacle. "Well, well, well, 3 diesels too big for their buffers couldn't manage steel cars, eh?" Diesel was fuming. "Well, if you treat wagons like that, then it's gonna bite you in the tail," he said firmly. "Right, shall we try and haul these cars to the yards?" It took some time to tidy up the mess, but soon everything was put right again, and Thomas and Phoebe hauled away the wagons to Foston. What about Diesel, Larry, and Bert? Well, it wasn't long before the Culver Works set them back up and running again, but they don't mess with steel cars anymore, because they know they'll try to bite back.